Hello, hello. Hi, I'm Ed Woodward. For those of you who don't know me, for those of you who do, I'm sorry. Welcome so much. This is great to everybody come out today. We never expected this kind of turnout when we first dreamed up this, but this is really wonderful that everyone came to see Mr. Adler and also to see Infinity Hall. I definitely want to say a big thank you to Infinity Hall for allowing us to do this and participating. If you haven't had a chance to get the 10-cent tour, please do so afterwards. There's folks here who can take you around and show you all the really neat spaces and spots they have. I also want to say thank you to the event resources team, Mary Beth and Lee, for putting a lot of this together and doing all the work. They've worked really hard on it. Beth, who has done all of our production aspect of it, does a great job. We're a great member of the team. And of course, the Infinity team with Mary Ann Clerkin and Angela Horniak, who've done a lot of planning on their end as well. So I don't know what else more to say. I'm sure you don't want to hear from me. So I'm going to introduce now Mr. Dan Hinks, who's the owner and general manager of this wonderful space.
Thanks, Ed. Thank you very much, and welcome to Infinity Music Hall and Bistro. It's very, very exciting to have you here. Can't believe all you event folks are in this place where we have over 200 events a year, and so it's very, very special treat for us to have you here, because I know that you can appreciate it, and it's just really, really great being part of the Hartford scene, and things are off to a fantastic start. So it's a real pleasure to introduce who is an absolute rock star in the special event industry, and how appropriate to have Mr. David Adler here. And I'm not going to stand up here any longer. I want to bring David up here and thank him very much for coming. We're really excited to have you. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I'm going to put the presentation on. Well, as you know, none of us are really attendees anymore, right? We're all participants. Are we telling all our people in our companies that we're all participants? So for the next 2 minutes, I want to turn this over to you, because as a guy, sometimes I won't have eye contact with the person next to me, right? So I'm going to take the next 2 minutes, and I want you to meet someone that you don't know before we start and have a conversation. You can ask them, what was their first job ever? And I want to start off, just so the room, I believe that events have to have more heart, and the way you have heart is you have conversations and you have more intimacy with the people around you. So for the next 2 minutes, I'm going to turn it over to you, and your job is to put your hand out and say hello to someone you don't know. Go. And I'm going to call people out who aren't doing it. You can get up too, you can stand up. You can actually stand up. Okay, so now I'm going to try the universal symbol of getting quiet. We're going to try a shh. That works every single time. In event planning school, does everyone know about that technique? The shh. It works better than the America the Beautiful, right? In certain places, but I think it really works. So now that you've met somebody here today, you never know. You could be meeting them. You could be dating them. You could be doing a deal with them. You never know what happens. That's the magic of events. I'm done. Thank you for your time. So I wanted to talk all about, I'm using Prezi. I don't know if you know, does anyone use Prezi here for presentations? It takes a lot of time to do, but it integrates video and sound really well, and I think it's good to know. So I want to make sure that while I'm up here, I'm talking about some of the things that we do in general. I also have provided everybody with the notes for this in terms of the people that I'm talking about, because it's not just me, but there's about 20 other people I'm talking about who have videos in here, and one of the secrets I found about millennials, they're all about the takeaways, right? And so if you give them the takeaways, you're like ahead of the game. So that's like tip number one, give them the takeaways. And then they're entertained and they've learned something. Okay, so that's one thing. So keep these notes. So one of the things that we're studying all the time now is, why are you here? Everybody is studying the idea of, what was that? Oh, sorry. His beautiful lens just broke, right? We're all studying the idea of, why are you at this event? That is the Holy Grail. You're here, some people are here to get more business. Some people are here to find new jobs. Some to make friends and these romantic connections, because that is one of the reasons people go to events. To take a victory lap, for example. To learn how to do something. To get smarter, to make a purchase. To have pure entertainment, to suck up to somebody else that's your boss or something like that, to get out of the house because it's too cold, to get free food and drink. I mean, my employees go to events to get free drinks, right? I mean, don't underestimate the power of a free drink, right? And also, I believe in the concept of managed serendipity. I live my whole life based on being in the room with the right people, and you never know what's going to happen. And events are like the best possible way in the world of managing serendipity. We have the ability to actually put the right people in the room, and that's pretty cool. So that is the first thing I want you to sort of think about why you're here, and then we're going to go through the presentation, because there's been a huge power shift. The organizer used to have all the power. We controlled everything. Now the attendee controls everything. You know these event apps? That gives you more power in your hand than as an attendee than anything else. You know who the people are. You know where they're from. You know what they want. Everything is now about the attendee. With social media, they're broadcasting, they're creating content. You, as an event organizer, almost control nothing and have to be happy with giving things up. And that's one of the big things that I've learned. And this change of power shift is really critical. So I want to go through 3 basic dynamics of this industry. And I think that rather than go just through trends, I want to sort of say what I see around the country, around the world, that's happening in terms of society and events, because it all mirrors each other. First of all, how many people have read Tribes by Seth Godin? It's all about tribal. You've read it, right? The whole thing is, media is now so diffused that we've kind of lost that fact where we sit in front of NBC or Walter Cronkite and he tells us everything. Now we're basically very individualized. And what Seth Godin says, that the things that you need is a shared interest and a way to communicate. And voila, the internet has helped us create a way to share the interest. Events have created a way to fuel that interest as well. Like, for example, why are 2,500 people going to New Kids on the Block has a cruise where 2,500 people go and they spend money. How many years has it been since New Kids on the Block? How many people here are New Kids on the Block fans from way back? Okay, would you go on this cruise? Probably, or maybe, right? You want to go. But there's something about that, and I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. But think about this cruise. Think about an entrepreneur in the event industry. This is adults. These are adults. And they're using kind of the whole new EDM, electronic dance music thing. I'm not a big dance music person, but that's changing also how you create shared experiences. So then the other thing that's going on is Coachella. Anybody go to Coachella recently? Or Lollapalooza, or all these festivals? This is also the tribal thing that's going on. And if you see what's going on, it's fantastic. And it's driving what consumers are expecting about events. So whether it's business to business or consumer, it's all morphing together. It's blurred lines, it's that song. And so Coachella is an example. Brands are going there. How many brands are using that? That's where the customers are. So brands are going to the customers. So the lesson here is go to the customer, whatever venue that is. And so events are now morphing into that. The beauty of companies like Levi's, for example, would go to let me get rid of that noise. Levi's would go to a festival, and they'll put up washing machines so that you can wash your Levi's. I mean, the activations that are happening at these things are very incredible. And so that's the new way people are learning. The second big dynamic is how to pay attention to things, learning to capture attention. And there's a guy that wrote this book named Ben Parr, who I've gone all fanboy over, who is telling us sort of all the tricks of paying attention. So here's a little bit about what he does.
Is about the science and the psychology of attention and why we pay attention to certain people and products and how to utilize that science to capture the attention of others. And so you have this combination of way more information than ever and us having bad habits to manage that information, and you have a world where it is both extremely difficult to capture attention and to stand out with your idea, whether it's a project, it's a startup, it's a passion, it's a charity, and having it be seen by the world, and at the same time defending our attention by all of this kind of information, understanding which things are worth our time and attention. So I kind of describe attention as stage one, immediate attention. It is our immediate and automatic reaction to certain sights, sounds, and stimuli. It's how we react if someone does this, for example. I love doing that. It's how we automatically react to when there's sights, sounds, stimuli like that. When someone puts a gunshot or launches a confetti cannon, we're going to pay. But the reason why we react is because it's a defense mechanism. We're trying to protect ourselves. Imagine if you had to think every time a car was coming at you. We'd be dead human beings. We'd be a dead species. And so it's a protection mechanism, and you'll see that a lot of attention is a defense mechanism, and a lot of it is activating those defense mechanisms.
So he is basically talking about, in his book, this is a great book, I think it's required reading for anybody that's in the event industry, how do you pay attention? If I'm a scientist and I'm wearing my white suit, you're going to pay more attention to me than if I'm not. If you actually serve warm drinks to people as they enter, they pay more attention than cold drinks. He's got all the scientific studies. If you touch somebody on the shoulder, like Bill Clinton has done that, he's gotten into trouble for it, but he always does that. And touching, appropriate touching is really one of the best attention grabbers you can get. And it's all about the science of how to do that, and understanding that is really important, especially in our industry. I mean, it's a trend to get smarter. It's really the whole thing. So the other thing is, this other third big dynamic is idea flow. So how do you get stuff to happen? So the idea is, as we said, it's no longer it's ask and engage, not sell and tell. So as a CEO, I'm a CEO of a company, I have no power anymore. I mean, you have to go, can you do this for me? Wouldn't this be a good idea? It's all about how do you get people to do things. So this sell and tell thing does not work anymore, especially with the new generation and even boomers. And so there's another book that I've gone all fanboy over, Social Physics, How Ideas Flow. Alex Pentland, he's right in MIT. And he talks about the idea of understanding how people talk to each other. Like you just had that conversation. Those are the things that are the most important. Like he'll do things like go into a company and change the break structure of a call center. So instead of everyone having lunch in little pods, they all have lunch together and productivity goes to the roof. Why? Because the conversations are about that jerk on the phone and this is how I dealt with them. And that is the way things really should happen. So I sort of say in Washington, for example, where I grew up, the most powerful type of event is a 6 to 8 cocktail party with 100 important, powerful people who can actually talk to each other. And so I now judge an event not by how many people are attending, but how many conversations you're curating. And this is a really interesting concept. So if you take 20 hours of conversation, 300 people, 8 minutes, that's like 20,000 conversations. So you have to program your events so that that the speaker's not speaking all the time, that people have the ability to go back and talk about it, and that you inspire them. So conversation plus exploration equals creative problem solving. And we all know this, we just don't do it. We're over-programming sometimes, we're just not necessarily thinking this out. Because we are really, I'm going to talk a little bit how that event organizing is really, we're architects of information. And I'm giving this word away, but Scott Heffernan, who runs meetup.com, told me this, and I'm stealing it. So what is the most powerful word in the English language when you have these conversations? It's the word let's. Let's go to lunch, let's go to dinner, let's hook up, let's start a revolution, let's start a business. When you think about it, that's what you're driving to in all these conversations. Let's make a buying decision. Let's make a fundraising decision. Let's make some sort of decision. But when you think about it, getting to the let's becomes a good strategy to think about in terms of when you're planning events. And also, the idea that content is not the most important thing anymore. It's contact. It's these people in this room. So what we do is becoming more and more important. Curating the room, curating the guests. Most bigger budgets are now being spent on getting the right people in the room and having someone ask them that they can't say no to. So a lot of the budgets are actually going to major PR firms and big companies that know the people because they won't go to one event. If they say no to one event, they will be blackballed from another event. So it's kind of like very transactional, but it's kind of the way it is. So this is, I believe, in the word collaboration athlete. I said that earlier, and I'm going to say that over and over again, because I believe that our job is to be collaboration athletes. And this is a little bit of an interview that I did on a future podcast that I have about being a collaboration athlete and how do you talk to a lot of people. So here's a little bit of the audio. We're using all the senses here for this. So I believe that we're teaching the world how to be collaboration athletes, as our friend Mary Boone says.
Absolutely.
So the people that actually participate, they become more collaboration athletes, and then they bring the same techniques home. And how do you see it promulgating?
It's the networked way of working that is so superior to the hierarchical way of working. And that's one of the big paradigms that are completely changing. So in the old day, we used to work via the hierarchies. Now it is the networks. And it's a completely different skill set that makes the stars in the networked community. It's different way of optimizing the flow in a company. The old hierarchical way, order is simply so slow. So companies cannot be successful in that paradigm. So how can you really speed up processes? And network are fantastic for that.
So this hierarchical thing is a huge change. This networking, that's what the internet is all about. And so we have to plan events and strategies around making things happen faster, as you know. So guess what? Holy crap. We have been discovered. Our industry is now a big deal. And what I'm trying to do is raise the self-esteem of the industry. It's interesting that it's such a big industry. There is the government and ceremonial part of this. There are the meetings and conferences part of this. There's the teaching and learning part of this. There's the incentive and travel side, the weddings and celebration sides, the fundraising and galas, the premieres and openings, and the marketing and PR. And it's all morphing together. What's interesting is that just BizBash alone, this is the only sort of like promo thing that I'm doing for us, but the real tastemakers in North America are these event organizers. The buying power is unbelievable. Like BizBash planners alone, if we took all the aggregated spend of our planners, it's $40 billion. So when I write something, there's a potential $40 billion spend that's happening. They host 2 million events. They spend an average of $750,000. Now, not everyone has this kind of budgets, but a lot of people do. It's actually pretty significant, but it's not compared to some of the big companies, so it averages out. They actually touch 30 million people annually. To me, that's the most important number. We are the wholesalers of information. Events are the new town square, and we have the ability to touch a lot of people in a lot of different ways. They also book 5.5 million room nights. So the economic clout is unbelievable. And we have to realize that we can use that clout as event organizers. If you make a decision on what type of food you're going to have, you have an economic impact. If you decide which hotel room you're going to use, which hotel chain, you have an economic impact. And we don't always consider it in bulk. So we make decisions on everything, on chairs and fashion and centerpieces and technology. So the combined clout of our industry is so much bigger than what people imagine. And that this is the real interesting number, that 25% of all marketing budgets are now spent on events. Because it's no longer, I always said that it used to be that event organizers were sitting at the children's table for Thanksgiving. And now we're at the big boy table. We're actually in the boardrooms, right? We actually are. They're really paying attention to us when we're smart and we're thinking strategically, because this is how they get the emotion into what their products are. And we have got to learn how to do it right. So also, what has also changed is the whole nomenclature. The words have changed. So it's no longer event planning. I consider that we're programmers of human interaction. That's what we do. It's a great word, right? because you have to think in the totality. From the minute someone gets an invitation, from the minute the idea even starts, to the tail, to how do you keep it going, is all part of this programming of human interaction. These programmers and software are getting paid gazillions of dollars for what we do naturally. RSVP is no longer RSVP. It's big data. We're taking all that information and we're getting tons of it and we're aggregating it and finding out who these people are. Entertainment is no longer entertainment. It's now audience engagement. You want them to pay attention, like what Ben was saying. Word of mouth is no longer word of mouth. It's amplification. The reason the event industry is so hot now is because social media and all those other devices has made it so we're not talking to the 200 people in the room, we're talking to your 17 friends and who's on social and whatever. Speeches are no longer speeches, they're considered content. Now, I don't like the idea that content and journalism are two different things now, because journalism is still journalism, and all these technology people think it's just content. Decorations are no longer decorations. I've been privileged enough to work at the State Department as a voluntold for the last 6 years. You know, when your friend gets a job and you're voluntold to help? So it may sound great, but I was voluntold. So I've been creative director for the protocol department, and we changed the word decor to educor, so that you can spend money on educor, because if you put a centerpiece in the secretary's table that has it's an indigenous plant from a certain place, that's education. It's not decor. And a step and repeat with an educational message is an educational tool and not decor. So that's just a little trick that works, but it actually, when you're more purposeful about things, it actually means a lot. Feedback, when you send those surveys out, it's really ratings, because everything's going to be rated in the future. I don't know if you noticed that, but even your Uber driver's rating you, but you're going to be rated by, it's just beginning, the whole rating thing. And then sponsorships are no longer sponsorships. They're called activations. How many people know the word activation? It's interesting that it's not. It is the most important thing in marketing now, is the word activation. And the fact our event world doesn't know enough about it is important to change that perception. Because the word activation means engagement. I mean, right? It's not that magical. And it's not what we do it anyway, but it's just that's how they monetize it. So here's the big elephant in the room. 90 million of them driving new thinking. And they're a lot different than we are. Although I consider myself millennial-minded, and I'm trying to be the most millennial-minded 62-year-old I can be. But I think it's important to lean into them. And this is some of the characteristics that we found. It feels like you're looking in the zoo to see what they're looking for. They strive for scarcity. They want to be the only one that has this, right? I mean, any millennials in the room agree with this or not? They like exclusivity. They like customization. They like personalization, and they want to participate. It's interesting. They also, I had some focus groups of all my technology companies in San Francisco. And the funny thing was they were talking about micro kitchens. Has anyone heard of micro kitchens? So the hottest thing in San Francisco at their events is to put these micro kitchens. These, like, you open a refrigerator up and you get your candy bars and your sodas. Because their offices are so cool, they have to make their events cooler than their offices. So they have micro kitchens like every 14 feet in their events. And it was interesting. I never even thought of that. But and Twitter has these 140-second events where you go to a food station for 140 seconds and you got to eat stuff and go to the next section. And it was kind of on brand. They believe in VIP parties. They believe in un-VIP parties. They're a lot of introverts, so you have to give them permission to talk to each other, and you have to kind of do what we did this afternoon, where we say, talk to each other, or else they won't, right? I mean, that's really important. You giving people permission to talk to each other is a job of an event person or a collaboration athlete. It's sort of saying, okay, remember when you went to the dance and you wouldn't dance with the girls or the boys? And the mom said, go. We have to be doing that in our events. Personalized storytelling. We're going to hear a little bit later about personalized storytelling. It's unbelievably important. And then physical gameplay. Dodgeball is one of the hottest things going. I don't know if has anyone seen that in terms of the physical gameplay is actually important because they're creating their own stories. When you're hitting someone with a dodgeball, that's a story you can go back and tell your friends. I just crammed that guy in the face. You know, it's like being in elementary school. So also, they like, our marketing is okay. Like in my generation, marketing was like, oh, we're gonna market, no logos, no anything. But this is what they like. They know that everyone's marketing something, and they're okay with that, but they want to be on brand and not brand throw-up. The people from Google were talking all about brand throw-up. You know what brand throw-up is? It's the logos everywhere. They would rather have the right music and the right venue and everything on brand. Also, social responsibility is really, really happening. When I got involved in social responsibility in marketing, and in the 80s and 90s, if the CEO changed, the program went away because they were doing it for different reasons. The millennials really do believe in it, and we find that you have to really be authentic about it. Okay, so I'm going to go into a few of the new building blocks of events. So first is connect. Connection is one of the building blocks that we talked about. So there is this concept, we talked about it at lunch, I think it was interesting, right, at lunch, about the new realities. And has anyone heard of a parasocial relationship? Okay, I'm going to let you hear a little bit from Ben.
So there's actually a term for all of this, and especially for our relationship with celebrities. It's called the parasocial relationship. And so it is our capability to feel a two-way relationship with a one-way figure. And I'll give an example. There was my old boss at Mashable. She works for Rachel Ray now. And what happened was Rachel Ray came out for Obamacare, right? And what suddenly happened was there was a whole bunch of women who came out and they're like, how could you do this? You've betrayed me. I thought I knew you. The fuck? How does this make any sense? It would make sense because people can feel as deep of a connection with a figure like that as they can with their best friend or their family's parasocial relationship. It's why we can fall in love with a brand or a musician or an artist. In the case, for example, of Taylor Swift, she's a master at parasocial relationships. So last year she was doing YouTube videos, and it was YouTube videos of her wrapping gifts and sending it to a few of her fans. And this created a frenzy in her entire community. She didn't have to give a gift to every single member of her community, to all of her fans, just a few, to show that she cared about them as a collective. And as a result, they paid attention back and made her album the #1 album of last year. She did a fantastic job of building that community and building that relationship. And she scaled her relationship with her community.
So parasocial relationships is a really interesting thing for events. For example, Comic-Con. People have a parasocial relationship with Comic-Con. I'm sure all of you have gone and dressed up and gone to Comic-Con, right? I can see this is that crowd, the Superman people are over here, and but it's the idea that we're so invested in the event that they want to go next year. It's nothing new that we have not been doing for years and years and years, but there's a name to it. The other thing is when you see has anyone used Periscope or Meerkat? How many people? I had somebody. These guys, I was in Iowa, and they were following me on Periscope this weekend. So I've been playing around with Periscope and Meerkat, but there's another thing called YouNow, and these are video selfies they pay people to look at them. So where Periscope and Meerkat are looking outward, YouNow is looking inward. And so you're seeing a lot going on with this in social media. And it's part of this whole parasocial relationship. And they're getting hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people going after them and being intimate with these people. There is a event called DigiFest. This one is June 7th. But these are YouTube stars that are filling up stadiums. The economic driver for a lot of venues now are YouTube stars because there's a concept with YouTube. It's called, they call it something like boyfriend or girlfriend tags. It's kind of like they bring two celebrities together and they basically play the newlywed game. And the idea is to be so intimate that you want to go see them personally. Parasocial relationships mean that you're more friendly with these people that you don't know than your friends, your real friends. And there's a quest to go after them and to meet them. And this is a driver for the event industry. It's filling up convention centers, it's filling up hotels, it's filling up all this stuff, and it's only getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So here are my parasocial relationships. I want you to think about what yours are. So this will tell you a little bit about me. So I'm a complete Apple fanatic. I'm trying to be, like, as I said, the 62-year-old millennial-minded person. I watch Downton Abbey. I love that. I'm a Thomas Friedman. I like reading his stuff because I learn about what's going on in the world. I think he knows better than I do. I am a TED fanatic. How many people look at TED? So TED has done a great job of creating parasocial relationships. Because when you think about TED, you think, oh my God, I'm smarter now. Or do I want to invest in like learning something? I watch Morning Joe, and I like Mika Brzezinski. I'm a Hillary Clinton fanatic, only because I know her, really know her. And then Mike Allen, I grew up in Washington, if you haven't figured that out. But Politico is also one of the things. So we all have our parasocial relationships. So identifying them is really important. And then understanding how to use them in your events. Like, who are the parasocial relationships that are being created because of your event? And that's important. So here's an example. This is really funny. I just didn't know this until I started researching this. How many people know PewDiePie? You know 1, 2? Anyone else? Okay, 41 million YouTube subscribers. He's the #1 guy on YouTube. And I'm gonna just play a little bit about him.
Attractive photos of other YouTubers. Here we have a great picture of Jacksepticeye. Let's see how hot he is. He's okay. Don't. It's just a stupid software, Jack. Don't let it get to you. Danny's not on fire.
He's from
Let's
Sweden.
see how hot that fire is. It's okay.
It's like ridiculous.
7 years. How did they? Let's take this great picture of Markiplier. 43? What the fuck? Well, it looks like the evidence is pretty clear so far, but let's try some more YouTubers. Let's try Marzia. There must be some kind of glitch. Listen up, Marzia. I'm the hottest YouTuber. That's more like it.
So, I mean, to give you an so it's interesting, though, that I looked him up on Wikipedia. He's got his Wikipedia page, which is also ridiculous. And it says his channel also appeals to strongly to younger viewers, a group Google refers to as Generation C, for their habits of creation, curation, connection, and community, which is what we do. But that's what's coming up. So you're going to need these creators and all these different things. But it's interesting to see that if you watch the YouTube stars, it's interesting. The other thing to watch is, anyone look at meetup.com? If you look up meetup.com and you see the emerging groups, you're going to see the next customers that you're going to have. Because there's like, all of a sudden you'll see 1,000 Japanese botanists that are meeting in downtown Hartford. You just never know. I go to New York Tech Meetup. There's 1,000 people coming to that. I mean, it's a whole new way of organizing. It's that networking thing versus hierarchical. So that's really interesting. So now I'm going to go to storytelling. And the big thing is the day the iPhone was released was the beginning of what we call story making. And I'm going to have you hear Khalid Juma from an agency, an PR agency, an ad agency called called Mosaic, that did the Bud Light Whatever Now campaign, which was it's happened last year, but it's a cutting edge change in the way marketing is done. I'm going to play a little bit of him.
When the world changed, and when story making itself was actually born for the first time as a medium. Story making, simply put, is turning your audience into your story. It's no longer about being able to push a brand message out there, but it's about allowing your audience to become that message, to be able to find the story within the kind of the greater arc, the story that they want to tell. It's about turning your audience into advocates through their voices versus having to push yourself or push your message out to them, which is kind of a little bit of a dated model. What happened on that day in 2007, July 27th, 2007? And what the iPhone did for us was it changed our entire world. The iPhone turned every single one of us into a creator, into a distributor, into a publisher. It allowed each of us to have a voice and kind of almost become a journalist in our own right. We were liking things, sharing things. We were kind of optimizing our worlds in a way that we never had before. But all of a sudden, information and information sharing was democratized on one single day. And what that day did was informed, I guess, a view on the world that I'd like to share with you. Based on the iPhone and based on the velocity of change that's occurred, I now believe that everyone is a network. And with everyone being a network, everyone's constantly looking to populate their networks with interesting things. Hence, the birth of story making. Every single one of us is now a publisher. The interesting part about this one is if each of us are a publisher, what does that mean for brands? If I can publish a piece of content every day to up to 10 different mediums that are on my phone, I expect a brand to be able to do so much more. Entertain me, entice me, make me feel, take me to new places. But this notion of publication kind of works in two ways. The minute you acknowledge that every single one of us is a publisher, you have to acknowledge that you have to give us things to publish. Experiences. Tantalize me, show me something different, teach me something, and I guarantee you I will share. I guarantee you I will tell the world that I'm interested in whatever it was that I just did in a way to kind of gain social capital, because ultimately that's what we're all doing whether we like it or not. We all feel great. Like physiologically, anytime someone likes our content, that's kind of a driving force that is a much larger conversation than today, but I don't think there's a single person in this room that says they feel bad when someone likes their photo or their Instagram post.
So that's an interesting concept, right? This whole story making. And when you design your events, the experience is not for the sake of the experience, but it's the amplification of that. It's that whole networking thing we talked about. And I'm going to play a little bit about what they did. Bud Light. Let's see if this is teed up right. I may not have. Let's see.
To be able to drive content regardless of whether your budget is $100,000 or your budget is $100 million. So we started with a very simple business problem. Past 4-week consumption was down, and 21 to 27-year-olds had lost interest in Bud Light. A lot of them actually just had never tried Bud Light. It was just never on their considerations.
Just start that next video again from the beginning.
We were tasked with building something that changed their minds,
forget it.
something that could live.
No, that's okay.
The fact that events are no longer just the thing that you used to do on the side. Events are becoming the core DNA of brands. Experiences are becoming kind of the fuel that are driving conversations forward. And every single one of you in this room has a role to play in that conversation.
That is a key thing. That what you didn't see was Bud Light took over a town. They had 1,000 people, that they had 1 million people sign up to come. They converted it into an experience that they used it as a content farm. And they produced one ad for the Super Bowl. But with all of the social media and all the experiences that they had through that particular event, they were able to raise the ROI of Bud Light by 3% for a global brand is absolutely huge, which changes the whole dynamic in putting events first as opposed to events second. And you're going to see that more and more and more. So the marketing side of your businesses are going to benefit from this as well, and it also proves the value of events. So on the tech side, how many people...
What is the Internet of Things? Most people...
Wait. What is the Internet of Things? How many people know the Internet of Things? How many people have anything to do? There's a few people. But I think it's something that it's going to be great for us. Because the Internet of Things, we had another speaker at our conference in New York, and I just put a minute of this. But it's really interesting to see where we're going. And talk about a trend.
It is. Some still don't. Very simplified definition for today. When everyday objects have network connectivity. Digital marketers are thinking more and more about the physical world, and experiential marketers are thinking more and more about digital. Now, at the same time, you have creative, digital, social, and PR agencies stepping on each other's toes more than ever before. Okay, so this is the Buddy Cup with an umlaut, presumably launched in Germany. So what happens is you authenticate with LinkedIn or Facebook. You go to a bar. Anytime you cheers with somebody else, you will automatically request their friendship on the social platform. So baking digital into an experience, a contemporary experience that everybody's very familiar with, cheersing, right? And now it's magic and behind the scenes like technology should be. This is a version of the social cooler where the first one that we built was predicated on actually checking in or mentioning us with a hashtag or engaging on social media to cause something physical, in this case, a cooler to open up. This was launched out in Belgium. So this is what I would argue is sort of the next step, right? If you walk up to this machine and you yawn like that guy's yawning right there, a cup of coffee is dispensed. So you're tired, you want a cup of coffee, you walk up to this machine, uses facial recognition, you yawn, and you magically get a cup of coffee. For the launch of Game of Thrones Season 5, so last year, King Joffrey, one of those vehemently hated characters in television history, so this giant statue was dropped right in downtown Auckland. What you don't see, there's this big rope tied around the waist and a big crank. And what was happening is with every mention of the hashtag down with the king, the crank would turn one notch, and then on around the millionth tweet, the statue was toppled. So again, incentivizing something in digital or on social to create this oddly purgative, awesome physical experience. This was back in Australia on a beach, and at key points, this was launched by Tourism Australia, at key points, if you stand at a particular place, it takes a gigapixel selfie. So the world's biggest selfie, gigapixel photography, it's 17 grand, I think, to actually just get the cameras, but these were fixed in place and you can zoom in. This I think is super interesting. So Amazon Dash launched last year and then really this year. These are $5 buttons. They're Amazon ordering machines. It's somewhat deviously brilliant on Amazon's part. You could have them built into the seat backs of every seat in this room, and could have my face on it, and every time you push the button, it launches a tomato at me, right? I don't know, like whatever you guys want to do. So this is very, very cheap to do now. Dynamic. Intel, of course, getting into the game. This is their smallest chip. It has really the most, it's tiny, so it's perfect for wearables. Will be very cheap, comes out later this year. So we're actually building a prototype to make air guitar real. So with a little wristband or a guitar pick, you could be generating noise, and drums, kick drums, and any sound you would want.
So it's interesting. This is the future. Talk about trends. This is getting cheap enough where it's going to be your giveaways and things like that at events.
We're also creating what we call as a digital wonderland. We're going to give you an asset. We're going to hand it to you at the door. You're not going to know what it is because you don't know what it, and let's assume you don't know what NFC is. You're just coming to this event, right? You're just trying to be, you're here because you have some reason to be here, but you have no idea what this is. If you proactively tap your credential, that's when you're engaging in this thing. It's an opt-in technology. Our job at Event Farm is to prove engagement value for you as an attendee. Why would I ever take this credential out of my pocket or touch it to a device? Why? So we have two things. One, rule of reciprocity. There is a reason you are getting something back by doing an action. I'm touching my credential to a digital gifting wall. What are you getting there? Oh, you're getting a digital gift. Okay, I get something back by telling you where I am or what I'm interested in, right? So that's the idea of give and take. And make them feel like there's touch points everywhere that they can gain something from. So check, digital gifting, downloading content, taking surveys, voting, polling, ordering drinks. These are all applications that we can deploy at the same time. So when a digital wonderland is working, it's when you see people in the crowd touching their credential to a wall, being like, is this thing going to light up? Is it going to move? That's when you know you've got it. And that's when the magic happens.
So this is a whole interesting thing. The idea of connecting, a lot of the registration companies are buying activation and experiential companies so that they can actually create this sense of reciprocity. Because the idea of this beacon technology that just says, oh, you're here, I'm going to invade your privacy. People want to make sure that it's a real transaction and that it's authentic. And so you have to want to do it. So if you tie it into the registration and you give people some sort of device and entice them to want to get something, then they're going to be more likely to be real customers as opposed to numbers on a list from a beacon thing with the new thing. So this whole digital wonderland concept I thought is brilliant. And I think you're going to see this absolutely everywhere, tying everything in from RFID to everything. But it's the whole idea of how do you create this digital wonderland for your events? And that is definitely going to be coming at some point. This is another concept. In order to get people to connect to each other, C2 Montreal, has anyone heard of C2 Montreal? It's like this 7,200 person conference in Canada, in Montreal. It's called Montreal. And it was started by Cirque du Soleil and an agency called Sid Lee. The Cirque du Soleil guys said business events suck. So they came and they decided they want to reinvent it. So they created this amazing sort of event where they use all these kinds of activations. But one of the things they do is brain dating. And I'll show you a little bit about what this means.
We turn spaces into learning hubs where like-minded people all over the world can connect for on-the-spot, knowledge-sharing meetups. The organizers of C2MTL, a creative business conference, challenged us to use our matchmaking expertise to connect their participants. The idea? Get them talking to each other. And that's exactly what happened.
The point of being here is to make connections, but also the right connections, and I felt like it really enabled all of that and enhanced the experience for me here.
Really meaningful connections that you can take to the next level and gain something from it.
I would always get a response from people. It wasn't one of these things where you send a request out there and it goes into a black hole. So obviously other people are finding it easy to use too.
It's bridging social media with actual physical meetings between people. It's a very exciting platform.
E180 wants to turn your space into a crowd learning hub. Think of the possibilities.
So they call this Tinder for your brain. But it's interesting, right? It's like another way to connect in a more authentic way. So I just want to play this clip. This is drones are a big deal, and you're seeing everything flying around the world. But these guys are doing these things called emotion butterflies. So these are drones that actually you program, and they actually fly like this. And so imagine at some events, they're probably better for weddings and things like that than the corporate events, but you never know. It certainly, can you imagine having something like this at your event? This is what's coming with drones. And you can see all these things flying. Can you imagine if they can do this, what they will be able to do? So that's kind of interesting. This is a German company that does this. They also do flying cars where they put like models of cars and they make them drones and they fly around the room, and it's pretty cool too. So there are the big things that are also coming that I see in the tech side. Flexible screens. You're going to see these Wove smartwatches where you're going to be wearing a much more technology. Like I have my iPhone here, and it's too small. So if I'm at an event, all my itinerary and everything else will be right on here. It'll be much easier to use. And then also LG wallpaper TV is coming, which is basically you can roll up your screen and you can take magnets and put it on the wall. So don't buy your big screen yet, right? So I don't know when I think they said it's coming out this year, but you never believe that. You never know. So that's this one. And then that's see the way it sort of folds up? It's pretty cool stuff. So on the design side, I'm flipping to the design side now. David Stark, who is a brilliant designer who does Robinhood, which is it's a fundraiser that does $75–80 million in fundraising, a lot of hedge funds. It's sort of the envy of everybody. So he says that we're going to basically have two trends. Natural and industrial will be mixing. Think weathered meets smooth, bohemian meets organized, Coachella meets CES. It's kind of interesting. And then Lindsay Landman, who is a good designer.
Okay, so I think the most important trend going into 2016 is the continuation of experiential design. So not just about what you look at, but about what you do, what you feel, how an event moves you, and sort of all the components that we develop to make that a bigger, better, more powerful experience. I definitely think the general concept of holistic decor is really important and will continue to be really important. The idea that no design is about any one central element, but really a collaboration of layered elements, lots of different textures and feelings and ideas, sort of that come together and as a whole create sort of the output of design.
That's kind of interesting when you think about how you plan social media into decor. I believe social media is decor, and that you spend time on doing 50 centerpieces when rather put the money into one central piece people are going to take a picture of. And so I think that's another thing that we're seeing. So we had this guy speak in LA, and he talks about the power of emotional design and how you design for the senses. And I'm going to play a little bit of this. I love this concept on how it's kind of part of this whole as part of this whole paying attention business. I'll play a little bit of him.
I have come up with a list of 12 of them. I call them the flirty dozen. And it's because you want to flirt with your audience a little bit. You want them to feel different things. So what are those emotions? The first one is this. Ah!
He puts everything into
You want to get their attention. You want to startle them sometimes. Surprise the audience. Huh? Create a little mystery, create some confusion. That's a good thing to do with an audience, because what happens is your brain starts going, what's happening here? I want to understand what's happening. And so they start paying attention even more, and then you can pay that off. Aha! That's the payoff sometimes for those mysteries. You get a revelation. Aha! And that releases endorphins inside of you, because there's something that you've just discovered. It's teaching your audience something. Everyone knows humor helps speakers. Why? Because it also creates dopamine in the system, and it makes people
all about
feel good.
neuroscience.
And it usually is very connected to aha, because It's tension, often in a joke, and then a release. Now, is an interesting emotion. It's a worry. It's like, what's about to happen here? Something, he's at the edge of the stage. Is he going to fall? The circuses have made a living on with acrobats and with all the lion tamers and things like that. It's a great emotion to stir up in your audience. Anger. Getting your audience angry can be really powerful, especially if you're talking about an issue of social consciousness or social good, or if you're perhaps talking about your stocks going down and you want to get your audience angry so they will be riled up to do something about it. Oh! Sometimes watching someone get hurt or someone taking a hit or hearing a story where someone had a very difficult time stirs up a shock, but then empathy. Yeah! The entire sports industry has made billions of dollars on yeah, because it's that exhilarating moment where something successful has happened. Aww. Touch the heart. Tell something that really is sweet. My wife just this morning sent me a text of a little puppy dog that was lost and came to the front yard, and I literally said out loud, aww. Arousal. Now, this isn't just sexual arousal, it's appealing to the senses. It could be food, it could be the promise of a treasure, a reward. Ah. That was my angelic sound. Inspire your audience. I love the word inspire because the word spire is from the Latin, means spirit or breath. And so you inspire, that means you're putting spirit into somebody. And when you aspire, you're putting your spirit to somebody. So we need to conspire, come together and share our spirits before we expire and die. And that's usually the end of an event. You just want your audience to feel satisfied. You want them to have that sense of satisfaction. Each one of these emotions releases a different chemical inside of your brain and inside your blood system.
That is what's so interesting about this, that we have to think about all these elements when we're doing an event. And it has an impact for everything. So fabrication is another big trend. We're seeing much more people creating bars and things like that. And that's something that is important now to sort of make it so people don't just go for the things that they've seen forever, but you're creating completely new things. On the data side, crowd shaping, this is the greatest word in the world. You can crowd shape while someone's there, in the room. There's a new technology where I can actually look at everyone's face and I can actually get a sense whether you care or not based on what your facial expressions are. And that's really interesting. And this is what Jeff Benish, who is one of our experts.
Biometric technology allows the emotional to become visible. And we look at that on a lot of levels. We think about that as far as what experiences we can create using this data. The color of the wash in your room is determined on what the engagement level is of your audience, and that can be dynamically changing. Things like the soundtrack could be generated based on the motion of the people here, at your event. What we created for Pepsi at South by Southwest last year was an environment where every single piece of the production was impacted by the event attendees. So imagine, everyone who came in was given a wristband, and everyone who came in was kind of greeted by name. There was a moment where we had a meter on screen, and based on how hard you were dancing, this meter would fill up. And then essentially, the reward for that was you got this Pepsi bourbon cocktail. So we passed out these cocktails, and we noticed that there was something changing in the energy, just qualitatively through observation. When we looked at the data after the fact, though, we realized that while people did calm down in order to consume the beverage, there was a 12% increase in their dancing and their excitement after that moment. So when you think about what that means, this is a really, this is the cusp. I think this has a much bigger implication than just passing out some, cocktails.
I mean, this is all about data. I mean, this is really interesting. Biometric stuff is really going to be, this is all this crowdsourcing stuff. So I'm going to go a little bit more on what we're hearing out there. And I'll just quickly go through some of these. We're seeing more casual dining. Jeffrey Zakarian, who owns a company called a restaurant in New York City, and he sees potlucks and family style becoming, I guess it fits into the whole collaboration thing that we're talking about. The people from Groupon think sustainability is really critical, leaving a space better than when you found it now, for real. Because we're not in the best business for sustainability, but we have to do the best that we can and try to leave it better than we can. David Stark says that we're also, because of what's going on in the world, we're going to see more personal events. So I think that that's going to be a trend. I think you're going to see a lot of executives hosting more personal events to accomplish some of their business needs too. Because it's your friends. It's ultimately your friends. This whole warmer environments that are important.
Hi, my name is Paul Salinger. I am a Vice President of Marketing at Oracle. I work closely with our event marketing folks on event strategy and event content. I think what we're seeing right now is a real move to audience centricity in a much more meaningful way than we've talked about in the past. We're starting to really see that experience matters, that we're moving away from overload of content to where people don't have kind of the room to breathe, that we're creating different kinds of experiences, different kinds of engagements for people. That's a combination of using technology, using digital engagement, but also using just pure physical experiences. For example, at Oracle Open World this year, we put in a giant ball pit that was tied into our cloud messaging and was called See Yourself in the Cloud, where people could jump into this very white environment that was all mirrored, and it was very interesting. So I think that we're seeing a lot of different kind of ways of engaging both online and in the physical world. And it's a combination of technology, it's a combination of digital, and it's a combination of being really intentional about the way that you think about your audience and create experiences that are meaningful to them and not so much for you as an event organizer.
So this guy is a total rock star in our industry, and Oracle World is an event for Oracle, which is part like Dreamforce and Oracle, and he's really setting the pace. I mean, the whole trade show business is completely shifting because you're seeing more of these training types of events. And what he talked about here, this is the pit that he talked about. So people fall into this pit, and that's the physicalness of it.
It's hard to get out of. So hopefully you don't film me getting out of it.
But it's an interesting thing that they built. And that's the whole, that experience is going to make you want to come to this event. So that's kind of interesting to see how they do it.
What I see
this is very
happening in
interesting.
16 is the association and nonprofit marketplace really looking at rethinking, redesigning, and re-energizing their products. And what that means is they're going to be pressed and pushed by the market more so. They're already being pressured by the fact that it's a seller's market. And so they're not going to be achieving great savings on hotel costs or center costs, which means that they have to add more value because as prices rise, people have to make choices about where they're going to spend their time and money.
What she said about seller's market is unbelievably true. We know that when you deal with RevPAR in the hotel business, we plan an event at a high season in a city, the prices are crazy. So in order for you to go, you have to make sure you're really providing value. And nonprofits are more than anyone under pressure to do that. I mean, we all are, but nonprofits especially. And so the idea that this is a seller's market and recognizing it is something that you need to make sure your organizations understand. Because they're going to come to you and say, well, it's too expensive, too expensive. Well, do you want to go into the cheapest possible hotel? No. And so you got to really make sure you understand the marketplace.
So I think that
Trusted
what would be
curators.
valuable is if people were maybe a little more thoughtful in terms of the curation process. I think that that's something that good planners are proving their value by being the trusted curator. Mark Cuban said on Shark Tank the other night, trusted curation is going to be a huge thing in the future.
So that, to me, I mean, Event Leadership Institute is one of the companies that I own 51% of. And we're doing it mission-driven because we want to raise the level of the industry. It's video training. But Howard's brilliant, and we're trying, this whole trusted curation thing, when we do events, we want to put this effort into every presentation that we kind of do. That's really important.
Okay, in the marketing and event industry, what I'm talking about for 2016 is what I call the dawn of immersive marketing. Virtual reality headsets are now being launched at Christmas, and at CES 2016 it'll be launched. So virtual reality will become an opportunity for people to be immersed in the marketing. so that I can send you a VR. I can have a sales call with you, send you a VR simultaneously, and you can get your hands on the equipment in virtual time. So rather than sitting in a trade show floor looking at a bulldozer, for example, I can give you a demonstration on a VR headset of that bulldozer actually working and put you in charge of it through the virtual reality equipment and capability.
What's interesting is there's a whole debate between, is VR too much of a personal experience, virtual reality? And you go to, does anyone go to any EDM, electronic dance music conferences or festivals? And you see, I don't really go to them, but I watched it on Lisa Ling the other day. But the idea that, that they're creating this group experience, which is so much what we do, without the drugs, that's what we need to do. But the VR is so personal. So there's a real big push and debate between what really is important in that. This is really one interesting.
This is Greg Topalian. I'm the president of Left Field Media, and my prediction for 2016 is it's the year that business to business and business to consumer events will finally start blending into one thing. So at Left Field, we're incredibly excited that we have a partnership with the Toy Industry Association, who runs the International Toy Fair. We are creating a new event called Playfair, which is a consumer, so B2C event open to the public that is all about toys and family entertainment that runs February 13th and 14th. So that breaks 113 years of history that Toy Fair ran purely as B2B. And to me, that's what the new wave and the new trend is going to be in 2016 and beyond.
That is, I don't know if people go to Book Fair, the American Book Conference show. They've started their own consumer show. So everything is morphing together. The idea that Toy Fair is doing a consumer thing, it's kind of what is happening in all the trade shows, because it's actually more money in it for people too, so they want to do that. So here's some of our cultural influences that's coming up. This year, we've got Ghostbusters happening. So people are going to do themes around the new Ghostbusters, the all-female Ghostbusters. And Alice Through the Looking Glass is also another theme that people are going to be using to jump off of for ideas. The other thing is there's 2 plays that are coming out that are having big influences. I don't know if people have seen Hamilton. Has anyone? This is the idea of a rap historical thing is so out there that this is having a big influence in what's going on in the world of events. So you see the designers are using these as jumping off points. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm dying to see it. Then the other thing that's coming out is Steve Martin's new play called Bright Star. And so you're going to see a lot of 40s stuff happening this year because of the pro-military. It's kind of fun. So you'll see a lot of that kind of dressing. The other thing that's interesting that you're going to see in events, in the music area, there's a lot of back to basics. We know who this is, right? This is not a rock star. This is a rock star in different ways, but she's not the traditional. So you're also seeing what we're finding is that the concept, this is interesting, sonic branding. Events are going to have a sound that, like Seinfeld, we all know the Seinfeld sound, but events that are on an ongoing basis are going to have their own sound print. And that's going to be interesting too. And these are the things that we know. And it's just another touch point that I think is kind of interesting. We're finally going to be starting to use data. It's going to be important. Data is going to be more important than ever. We're actually starting to know how to use it. What we're seeing, I'm going to run through some of these quickly. The Pantone colors, anyone know the Pantone colors? Serenity and Rose Quartz are what they picked. So now you know. And it's tranquil. It says that its soothing hues represent a cultural desire for colors that psychology fulfill our yearning for reassurance and security. Also a cultural shift, blurring the gender lines in fashion. So you were also seeing things like, here's something from that we published. The Throne of Trash from BuzzFeed and Jolly Rogers Keep on Sucking New York exhibit. So these are all social media activations for the most part. This is somebody actually torched their meat high up. I don't know really what that is about, but it's a Cirque du Soleil event type of thing. This was where a 20-foot disco ball over an outdoor event at Paramount World Center, which is kind of fun. mean, it's just, we can't afford all these things, but you get inspiration from them and see how you can adapt. Using video mapping on bars is actually starting to happen. I went to this event. Instead of walking directly into the event, this is the AOL up front, so you actually walked into this sort of, it felt like you're walking to an elevator that was completely, in order to get into the main event, you had to go through this visual experience. And it was completely giving all their messages. So all the messages happened before you even got into the event, which was kind of cool. The same event, they had 5 different DJ towers with all different types of DJs. I thought that was kind of fun. This is a Clicquot champagne company that does Vive Clicquot, which that's their step and repeat, which is kind of a new way of doing it. This is an interesting. Coke did this thing where you actually watch the actual Coke go through a billboard and then down to your glass. It's just this sort of the NCAA. I mean, they're doing all these things. Ocean Spray did this event in New York where they actually put the whole luncheon in a bag of cranberries. They get budget. Can you imagine presenting these things? This was interesting. This is a social media phenomenon where they actually choreographed fountains made of Mentos dropped in Coke Zero. This was the ultimate social media thing of 5 years ago, where you put the Mentos in, and these guys created fountains based on the Mentos and the Coke, which I thought was kind of clever. So, I want to end. I'm perfectly on time, and we'll have some questions. But I recently was introduced. Anyone know Brené Brown? Brené Brown? Do we love Brené Brown? She's unbelievable. So she talks. She's a shame and vulnerability psychologist. She talked to TED, and I'm going to play a little bit about what she did, and then relate it to our industry.
Creativity and change.
Uh-oh. Started again. Can you back that up? Nope. This is really good. Yeah, just bring that so that, yeah, there you go. Bring it all the way over. There you go. See, you're seeing how it works. Okay.
How many of you, honestly, when you're thinking about doing something vulnerable or saying something vulnerable, think, God, vulnerability is weakness. This is weakness. How many of you think of vulnerability and weakness synonymously? The majority of people. Now, let me ask you this question. This past week at TED, how many of you, when you saw vulnerability up here, thought it was pure courage? Vulnerability is not weakness. I define vulnerability as emotional risk, exposure, uncertainty. It fuels our daily lives. And I've come to the belief, this is my 12th year doing this research, that vulnerability is our most accurate measurement of courage. To be vulnerable, to let ourselves be seen, to be honest. Vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change.
So I believe that event planning takes courage because all of our human vulnerabilities are on display. How many people agree with that? It is amazing how we're doing an event and anything can go wrong, anything possible can go wrong. So I realize how much courage it takes to be an event organizer of any type, to be that public about these things. So I think that shifting the argument from this is just a job to being courageous to be this job is pretty amazing. So with that, I want to thank everybody and open up for questions. Any questions? Okay. Stand up and say.
Well, my question is that you keep talking about step and repeat, and I, for one, don't really quite understand that. Can you explain step and repeat?
What a step and repeat is?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So at any event or premiere, you know how the celebrities walk through the red carpet? Well, the step and repeat is to give the sponsors sort of visibility. So in the back, you see the logos. Yes. And so does everyone else know what a step and repeat is? Yeah. I've walked down step and repeats and nobody cared. That is the most vulnerable thing you can do. It's it's very scary. Okay. Most premieres do it, and it's become pretty common, I think. Any other questions or comments? Yes?
Mostly to the millennials. Like a lot of the trends that you spoke about were to attract millennials or serve millennials. What kind of ideas do you have for the pre-retiree and retired group like yourself if I'm marketing to those people?
I don't think it's that much different. I think we're all humans, and that we may not want to be tweeting and doing stuff all the time, but you don't want boring events. I mean, I think that's, I don't, I mean, we're all kind of segmented out in our tribes, and you got to find what that is that people want. What would you say would be the answer to that? Because I don't know. I mean, I'm talking about the general mass audience. I'm talking about from millennials to Gen Z, they call them now, the kids that are doing Snapchat, all the way up to boomers. And I don't see that much of a difference in general between what attracts people. And you're welcome to argue with me on that. No?
Absolutely, I would argue.
Okay, argue. That's okay. I mean, I definitely think there's difference, but it's...
generational thing that people of, I happen to be in the same age group as you, so people in our age have very traditional values. They're not doing cheers with digitalized cups that go, you know, straight to LinkedIn or wherever, Twitter. Well, so if I was going to have an event, these people already know how to connect with each other. I have events where people, they've made friends with each other from the past event, and they go to those events because they made friends.
That's fine.
So if I'm looking for a new trend in 2016, without being high-tech or
conversations are interesting topics and great speakers, and I mean the things that really don't change are something that's done with, you know, class and quality and taste. And I think that audience is kind of done. Like when I said the most important thing for idea flow are having really smart people talking to each other. That's not going out of fashion. That's not going out of fashion. It's connecting to the new customers and the new generation that I think is really the issue. I mean, we kind of know how to do it, right? I mean, trends,
yes.
Yeah. So you don't need me for that.
Well, if I've been doing the same thing, though, for the last 8, 9, 10 years with the older age group, and I want to make a change, which is why I'm here. I don't know why
I think activations, the idea of doing interesting things, social media, I mean, I think everyone I know is on social media. I mean, my whole generation that I know is completely on social media, that I think that there is a whole segment, I mean, there's different segments of people, but everyone I know is pretty much very social media savvy, and that they're actually more so than a lot of them.
So if they're social media savvy, and there's an event for 500 people, and they're all age 60 and up, how does social media play a role in that event? Let's say it's a dinner.
They're Facebooking their grandchildren, right? I mean, they're trying to share their experiences, liking things. People are sharing their experiences. I think that's not changing. I think that people just don't do it through just word of mouth anymore. They do it through electronic. I mean, the bulk of the new markets it's all segmented by what you know. I mean, so I can't really argue your point either. All I know is that what I see is that people are trying to connect in different ways. And whether it's talking or great conversations, that's not going out of style. Yes?
Hi, I'm Maureen from the American Cancer Society. I would like to know what resources you have. I mean, all of the things that you showed up here today were absolutely beautiful, and I would love to implement all of them in my event. But there's perception. So if I did get a sponsor to give me money to do some of these things, my participants would be judgmental because the money's going towards the event and not towards cancer research. So do you have resources, or can you share with us something?
Well, my feeling is it's about being a collaboration athlete. It's about doing things that allow people to talk at their tables together, to want to entice them to come and make it interesting. It doesn't necessarily take budget necessarily. I'm sure it does in some extent. But the sharing, you can do sharing with postal cards, with little, I mean, the most effective thing I've done in the past recently is I put up a bulletin board and I had people write their names on it, and people traded cards that way, to connect. I mean, it's not necessarily, these are just enhancements to it. I think that what I would suggest is get your people and your team together and just brainstorm, and you'll come up with something that's appropriate. I mean, I do these planathons where we bring a lot of event organizers together, and we put them in tables of 10, and they have 20 minutes to create an event. And the ideas are just unbelievable, and we videotape them. And one was to solve the water crisis in California, and they came up with us doing a festival for the shortest celebrity showers, that type of thing. But it's actually about ingenuity more than it is about budget, I think. I mean, I know that you need budget, but ingenuity is really the driver for a lot of that. David Stark, who is one of the top designers, probably one of the most expensive, talks about ingenuity is his engine. He'll do an event with Post-it notes, like a whole bunch of Post-it notes. I mean, it's not necessarily about budget. It's kind of like using whatever you have, whatever resources, because we've all been there where we have no budget, and how are we going to make this thing cool with nothing? And I don't think that's going out of style. But in terms of trends, I'd say take the trends that you're seeing and adopt them to whatever budget parameters that you have, which is not a great answer, but that's all I have. A question? Oh, yeah, okay.
I just have a comment or a response for the woman who was asking about the elderly population.
Thank you.
So I'm a marketer by trade. I'm not a special events planner at all. And in marketing, the research is definitive that you go young no matter what, because the older populations want young. Think about it. Do we want to age? Do we want to see ourselves as old? So the answer to that in how do you attract a cross-section of different markets is always up for young, because if you up for old, then you're not going to grow at all, but it's always young. And the other piece is in terms of social media and social media trends, especially Facebook, your majority of Facebook users are women aged 55 and older. So that's just my experience.
Thank you
on
for
the
that. They
end.
really need that help. I didn't pay her anything. Any other questions? Oh, we have one back here.
What do you see as the trend toward live and silent auctions at fundraisers?
Live and silent auctions. I've seen them do they went away during the recession completely, and then they came back, with great auctioneers. And I think silent auctions are still like bread and butter for a lot of things. So I don't think they're going to go out. I think that a lot of people are using technology to make it easier to do, to enable them more. And it's not that it's not an expensive proposition. But I still think it's sort of what the curation of the content that you're auctioning based on the charity. Like when Robinhood gives away, be on a video with Madonna. I mean, they deal pretty well. But you can do something in your own world, and to use these parasocial relationships in your own world. Because that is the parasocial relationship thing is so powerful, because we all have parasocial relationships in little type areas. Like the person down your block, that sort of the celebrity in your block could be the parasocial relationship that people have with them or something. And auction those things off. Not just unsolicited bad advice, but. Any other questions? Well, I will be here for a little while, so thank you so much.
David, thank you. One more time. David Adler. David, seriously, this was fantastic. Thank you so much. Hopefully, I think I could speak for everyone here. It's very enlightening, and I'm sure we can all think of our events a little differently. So really appreciate your time and insight there. I'm Lee Simmons with Event Resources, and thank all of you for coming out. Really appreciate it. We like to do these educational platforms and events for you guys because we really believe. What's that? Oh, okay. People like money. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. You have to get through what I have to say. No, we like to put on these educational events for you guys because we really believe at Event Resources that the more knowledge you guys have and the more of the trends and things that are going on, it really betters our partnership with you guys. And so we're really firm believers of that, of empowering you guys and better our relationship with you. So we appreciate you taking the time to come out. We do roundtables, we do webinars, and and other panel discussions. That's the other thing we've done. So we encourage you when we do those things to join in that as well. And this is the first time we've done a bigger event like this, and I think it's been a pretty good success. So hopefully we'll do more things like this as well. Also, I saw a lot of people taking pictures. Awesome. We've been using the hashtag Adler Shakes Up CT, so we encourage you, please, hashtag that. We would love to see all the pictures on social media. We're also recording this as well, so we'll have all the clips and whatnot on our YouTube page, so we encourage you to check that out. To kind of echo what Ed said earlier, there's a lot of people who put a lot of effort in today's event, so a very special thanks to Infinity Hall, your entire staff. You've been a great host. Really appreciative. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people at Event Resources put a lot of time and effort, and specifically really want to give a special kudos and thank you to Mary Beth, wherever you are. It's like, where's Waldo out there? I don't know where. Oh, hey. So Mary Beth, thank you for all your effort. We really appreciate that. And let me get to the money here, and then I'll tell you one more thing. These are, I don't even know how we were going to give these out. These are $50 value, 2 tickets for shows up to $50 value, I believe, if I got that right. Please don't quote me on that. So I don't know a really good way. I don't think we ever really thought of that, of how we're going to give that away. I should have. First one to raise their hand. Why don't we tell me who has the closest birthday? Why don't we do that? Who has a birthday coming up? What's your birthday? Can anyone beat, what's today? Today's 20th? What do you have? Your husband doesn't count. What's yours? I'll take yesterday. You know what? We have a few of these. We'll give one both. There you go. Oops, sorry. Sorry, Pete. How about another one? I got one more here. Who drove? I like that. Whoever said that. Who drove the furthest? That's a good one. Mystic? New Haven? Whoa. Can anyone be that? Northwest corner, Bantam, Connecticut. Nope. Okay, we got a winner. Thank you. Awesome. All right, we also encourage you guys, we're going to have a reception. We're going to have some free beer and wine. So please absolutely join us. If you're like me and want something more than that, that's on you guys. But by all means, feel free to buy me a drink. I'm cool with that. So really, thank you all for coming out. Really appreciate it. And have a good night and drive home safe. Thank you.